Hey y'all, welcome to Whoa, hold on, I'm gonna try that one more time.
Oh,
My my webcam freaked out. All right. 3, 2, 1. Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of the two-man game with me and Ryan here. It's been like a week, I think, since the last
10
episode.
days, bro.
10 days. Jeez.
I've
I
been,
was at
I've been
Summer
counting.
League.
I've been making tally marks on my wall because I've been so lonely.
Yeah, you texted me saying you were looking forward to popping back on. I was too. I wanted to hopefully find some time to do an episode while I was in Vegas, but I had like literally no time. I was at Summer League, which I guess we can start off the episode by talking about that. The theme of this episode is going to be we're talking about Summer League. We want to talk about some of our potential breakout players for next season. I just did a full video of that on my YouTube channel, so I want to talk a little bit more about some of those guys. Ryan also asked on Twitter for some of y'all's takes on breakout players, so we can talk about those guys too. And then we want to bring in a new segment called Shooter Pass, which is basically like buying or selling hot takes, but a more basketball themed kind of stipulation around it. So we're going to talk about some.
I'm gonna add a layer to that, Connor.
Yeah, a layer to it.
When we do it, if we shoot, we can say, are we shooting it contested or uncontested?
Okay. So like,
we'll add some layers to it.
Yeah, see a little bit kind of what they're saying, or if you
Yeah.
like really are buying it. Okay, I like it. Or you could do like the Ben Simmons pass where you're right under the rim wide open and you can just dish it off to the side.
Of all time.
Exactly. So we can add some layers to it. But yeah, Summer League was great. I was there I flew out on this past Thursday on, what day was that? The 6th? I think it was the 6th. I got into Vegas, stayed there overnight. Saw a lot of people actually getting on the plane. PJ Washington was on my flight because I went from New York City to Charlotte.
I was going to ask what team he's playing for.
No, I mean, he apparently is supposed to sign his qualifying offer with the Hornets and go into unrestricted free agency next year, although apparently the Hornets aren't super keen on that. So I don't know. We'll see what ends up happening with him. But PJ was there. Mark Jones, the commentator, was on they have like a little tram thing that you have to take from the terminal to get your luggage. He was on there and I like recognized him. Like, I'm pretty sure that's Mark Jones, but I was, I was a bit hesitant because I'm like, I don't want to go up and say something to him and it's not him. And then he answered a phone call and hearing his voice was crazy. Like, it was like I was watching a game. And I didn't end up saying anything because he stayed on the phone for a while and then he met up with some family and stuff like that. So I didn't say anything, but, I got to see guys like them. Nick Collison, the Thunder legend. I got to take a picture of him, which was super cool. Shams, who was shorter than I thought he was going to be. The interaction was also kind of awkward. I've heard from a number of people that Shams is like more soft-spoken, and I could definitely tell that from when I went.
So you got to tell me about that. Did you just see him and just roll up to him?
Yeah, so we were just standing outside of so there's two arenas. For those of you that haven't been to Summer League, there was the Thomas and Mack Center, which is the big like actual arena, and then connected to it is Cox Pavilion, which is basically like a high school gym. So they played the games in one of those two spots, and we were standing outside of Cox Pavilion waiting to go in because when games are finishing up, they don't want anybody in or out to kind of make the traffic a little bit easier between going to the games. So we're waiting outside for them to let us in. And I just see Shams. I like a term like, oh, that's Shams. And he was on his phone, probably looking at some text from some GM or something like that. And I was like, I'm going to go over and, ask to take a picture. So I just walked over and was like, hey, Shams, like, do you mind if I take a picture? And he's just like, oh, yeah, okay, sure. And then we took the picture real quick. I was like, have a good one. He's like, you too. And like, it was a very short interaction, but it seemed like I kind of caught him off guard.
You didn't even tell him your name?
No, because I didn't want to bug him. He seemed like he was busy with something.
You didn't want to bug him, but you took a picture with him.
I did. So I guess I kind of did bug him. I didn't want to bug him any more than that. But so, getting to see people like that was pretty cool. Saw a lot of NBA players, sat a few seats away from Anthony Black, Magic draft pick in one of the first games that I think literally the first game I was at, Pelicans Timberwolves. I met a bunch of other content creators. I was there with, Jacob Rusty Buckets. I got Alex Hoops, a couple of other guys. I also got the chance to meet up with Dom, Click, see the Through the Wire guys. I'd met Kenny before, but I got to meet him again. Me, him, Jacob, and Alex hung out for a little bit, watched the Bulls-Grizzlies game, which was cool. So we just chilled for a little bit there and then met up with him at the Through the Wire podcast live taping. It was the first chance I got to meet the other three guys, Pierre, D-Mills, and Mike, which was cool to meet up with them. Really cool event. I got to meet my guys over at No Ceilings who do a bunch of great draft coverage. If you're looking for anything, go check them out. So yeah, it was an awesome experience. And the hoops, of course, were fun to watch too. I got to meet a lot of y'all out there that watch either this podcast or watch the YouTube channel, just follow on Twitter and stuff like that, which was super cool. I met up with a Sixers fan who runs this account called Sixers Daily, which was cool. So I talked to him about the Sixers. I was going to say, I think he mentioned you. And so I got the chance to talk about him, which, by the way, Kenny didn't realize that we were like brothers, like real brothers, until I mentioned that.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I was talking with him at the Bulls Grizzlies game, and because I was going to ask him about Peoria, where the two of us might be going. Because Ryan, if y'all didn't know, he's big into disc golf and he's really good at it. So he's playing in this tournament in Peoria, I think it's pronounced, Illinois. I might go up there and meet with him to hang out for a little bit while he's over there. And I was going to ask him basically like, what is that area like of Chicago, or not Chicago, of Illinois, and like how far is it from Chicago and stuff like that. So we were talking for a moment. I was like, yeah, my brother, you know my brother. And he kind of like stopped for a moment, looked, and he's like, I do. And I was like, Ninja Bands. He's like, oh, he's like, I think I'm just now realizing you guys are like actual brothers.
That's so funny.
Yeah. And I told him he's definitely not the first person. There's a lot of people who don't realize. But yeah, so I meant
it's funny because I've talked to and watched so much of Kenny's videos that like I can just so picture him saying that and his face like, really?
Yeah, I caught him off guard. He's like, oh, actually? So yeah, but it was a great time. Also, while I was in Vegas, like the first morning that I was there, Ryan and I hopped on Bleacher Report together and did a live stream, which is super cool. I've been doing live streams with BR for a little bit now, and they reached out to me and asked if Ryan wanted to do one too. So we did that. He absolutely crushed it. It was a great time. Hopefully we get the chance to do more of those. And yeah, I mean, Summer League was super fun, you know, beyond the meeting people and kind of just some of the like the generic hoop stuff. There was a lot of debuts. Victor Wembanyama's was crazy. Like the atmosphere in the building was unreal. The game before
was his stinker, bro.
He wasn't good in the first game, and we'll talk about that.
Were you at his second game too?
I was at his second game too, which he was a lot better in. So I got to see the two sides of the coin with Vic, and those are the only two games that he ended up playing. So we got to see a little bit of each side of him, but he's going to be a lot more like he was in the second game than the first. And like people were super hype leading up to it. I heard from people that were in the media section that they were forced out of it to go find a seat because there were too many people in the media section for Vic. That apparently, look, this was like the first ever sold out Summer League day that they've ever had, was Vic's debut day. There was also like no seats whatsoever. I got lucky enough to find a seat a few hours beforehand because thankfully the game beforehand was also good. So I just stayed in my seat for Rockets Pistons, or not Rockets Pistons. It was Rockets Blazers. So I sat there and got to see
that game. That ending of that game was nuts.
It was ridiculous. And it was funny because it was a great game, but people were so mad that it was taking so long. Like it was such this huge back and forth affair. Normally people would have been super psyched for it, but because everybody was waiting to see Vic, like people were, every time there would be a foul or there was a shot where it's like, oh, like this game might go to overtime, people were like groaning and like getting upset. And there was like a murmur in the crowd, like this game better not go to OT. Jabari Smith Jr. ends up hitting that crazy half court 3 game winner, which was sick. So that didn't end up going to OT and taking any more time. And then Vic comes on the court and like the crowd is electric. Like people were super hype. Obviously it wasn't the best debut for him, but even so, like it was still super fun to watch him out there and, you know, feel that experience. And like I said, in game 2, he was a lot better. So Summer League in general, you know, I got to see my Thunder guys who are also great. We're going to talk a lot about some of our favorite players and performances from Summer League in a moment. But yeah, Summer League was great. I know you said before the podcast you had a couple questions to ask me about Summer League. Did I answer those?
I was going to ask, did you feel like your time the second time around was a lot better? Because I feel like your first time around you had a good time, but I feel like you seemed way more into it this time. It feels like you had a lot, like you kind of knew what was going on. You had some more hookups and stuff like that. It feels like this time around you kind of, first time was like you still had a great time, but it feels like this time was a lot better.
Yeah, it was. And I talked to a lot of people who said that this was the most packed Summer League, like the most energized one they'd ever seen. Obviously, that is like the Victor Wembanyama effect. But yeah, I mean, like you said, I kind of knew what I was doing a lot more. Like I knew a lot more people that were going. I think I went at a better time of the Summer League schedule this year. Last year, I went like a few days in. And after the first like 3-4 days, a lot of the best players stopped playing and stuff like that. So it makes it, the hype dies down a little bit. A lot of the events kind of cool off. There's not as many players attending the games anymore because they don't want to stay there for like weeks. So it was definitely better this time. And I also just kind of knew what I was doing. Like I knew how to get to places. I knew where I was going. I knew kind of what spots to go to. So yeah, I think it was a lot better this time than it was the last time. I had a fun time last time, but yeah, I think with the combined effect of how energized things felt with Victor Wembanyama and the hype of this draft class, in addition to kind of just knowing what I was doing, I definitely think this time was better than the last one. And I do want to say I recommend to y'all going to Summer League at some point for a few days. Like I don't think being in Vegas, you need to be there more than like 3-4 days. I think that's kind of like the limit. Cause I mean, I probably could have stayed for longer. It would have been a great time. But one, it gets expensive out there, like Ubering to places, which by the way, I got in an accident in one of my lifts. Like we just got rear ended. I made a tweet about like how we traded Patty Mills, who came in like a different deal. It was kind of a nothing trade, but we traded Patty Mills and I tweeted about it, calling him a Thunder legend. And like no less than 15 seconds afterwards, we got hit by another car in the back of our car. So it felt like maybe a sign from God being like, stop making Thunder legend Patty Mills tweets. But yeah, like it's really hectic. I hardly slept the whole time. I'm still kind of thrown off being back on the East Coast. So yeah, it's an incredible time. I highly recommend it, especially if your team is like a highly touted draft pick. Go and check them out. But, go for the first few days, like first 3-4 days, and then you can leave.
Got it. And then my other question, so this is going to be really hard to quantify, but if you had to rank your top 3 moments from Summer League, what are they?
Just like going in general, like basketball moments.
No, that all of it. You have to pick your 3. Like if you had to tell your grandkids one day about your 3 favorite moments, that's all you could tell them.
Well, I mean, I think seeing Vic is obviously number one. Mm-hmm. Like just the experience of getting like these were his first NBA games. They're not, they don't count for anything really, but this is the first time he's played over in like the NBA in some type of capacity. So that hype, the electricity in the arena, like it genuinely felt like I was watching like a historic moment. So that was super cool. Like that was probably the number one thing that I would talk about. I guess, meeting up like the Through the Wire podcast taping was also really sick. Like getting to, again, meet some of the Through the Wire guys, but also there were a ton of people there who recognized me, who said, hey, I got to talk with some of the other guys who are part of Enjoy Basketball like I am. I didn't even mention that I got to talk to some retired players, which was super cool too. I got to interview some of them with my guy Jack, also part of Enjoy Basketball, which was cool. I got to talk to Scott Williams, who's part of 3 of the Chicago Bulls title teams back in the 90s. I got to talk to what's his name? I got to talk to a guy who played for the Sonics under Bill Russell when he coached there, and he told some really funny stories about that. So just getting to talk to some of those retired players, and I kind of divulged off the 3 moments thing, but there were too many. I think 1, I'd have to go with, seeing Vic and stuff like that. 2, I'd probably go with like the Through the Wire thing because, getting to meet a bunch of other creators at that, meet those guys, meet a bunch of people who just said that they recognized me was super cool. And then 3 is probably just, hanging out with some of my friends that I was there with. So like in general, it was just a good time, but
right. Last question. Best thing you ate and worst thing you ate, or not even necessarily worst, but like no, you could have been like, I paid $30 for this mid piece of chicken, or something. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Best thing I ate. There was some good food. I will say I got really tired of like fast food by the end of it. Like I can't do fast food a bunch of days in a row. And because I was traveling and I was eating a lot of late nights, it was like I had so many chicken sandwiches and like chicken tenders and fries. It was ridiculous. But probably the best thing I ate might have been it might have been In-N-Out. In-N-Out was really good.
Yeah.
Like I had some good stuff in general. There was this taco salad bowl that I had at the hotel that I was at. Like they've got like this food court, and I had that there. That was also really good. I really like that. But I know a lot of people say In-N-Out is overhyped. Maybe it's because I've only had it a couple of times. I think it's really good. So I'll probably go with In-N-Out as being one of the best things that I ate. I never had time to eat at like a fancy restaurant or anything like that. And then the worst thing I ate, there's this buffet at the hotel that cost like $30 to get into. And it was just like the most generic food. And it like tasted like it had been out for a little bit. Like it wasn't terrible, but especially when you combine it like for $30, it was like, this was not worth it.
Was it better or worse than a Golden Corral buffet?
Better, I would say, but it was way more expensive. So
yeah, Golden Corral, we used to get in that thing for $10.
Yeah. So like there used to be a Golden Corral that wasn't too far from our house. And when we were like broke in like early high school and stuff like that, we would and we wanted to hang out with friends to get food. We would go there. The food was never very good, but it was cheap. And we could get in there for, a lot less than I could have gotten into for the buffet at the hotel, which was like $35, I think. So probably that was the worst thing that I ate.
All right. Gotcha. I'm a big food dude. So I had to figure it out. I figured you're not, no offense, but I feel like when we're not, I feel like you're more adventurous with food when I'm with you. You know what I mean? I feel like
maybe
I can get you to eat some crazy thing, not crazy things, but you know what I mean? Like I'll be like, let's go to this place that I don't think you would ever think of going to.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I ate so much food. Oh, actually, wait. Best thing that I ate, like this wasn't a meal, but I
Mhm.
before the Through the Wire podcast thing,
Yeah.
I had only eaten like chicken tenders and fries earlier in the day, and I just wanted something quick before we went to the event.
Mhm.
So I got this mango smoothie at this place. One of the
Okay.
best smoothies I've ever had in my entire life. I'm a big smoothie guy. That thing was incredible. I could have drank like 3 more of those. And I can't remember what I think it was called, like Happy Lemon or something like that. I know I think it had some variation of happy, and I
Was it
think it
just an
was lemon.
emotion? We'll pick an emotion and a fruit, and we'll say that's what it was.
It was something like that. I think it was Happy Lemon, but I can't remember exactly what it was. But that mango smoothie was ridiculous. Like, it was so good because I was there. I was like, I've eaten so much fried fast food. I desperately want like fruit of any kind. So I just went and got a smoothie, and that was like the best decision I made the entire trip because that was
Bro,
amazing.
that was low key me this morning. So I went to as I phase out of the camera. Bring
Oh
me
yeah, your
back.
webcam got super out of focus there.
Whoa. Okay, we're
You're
back.
back. You're back.
So there's this place where I live called the Dirty Buffalo, and the famous meal there, I guess you could say famous, like what they're known for, is a plate of home fries, big plate of mac and cheese, and 3 chicken tenders covered in whatever sauce you want. It's called Triple Dirty Chick. And I've been really good about how I've been eating because I've been on like a diet exercise grind the last 2 or 3 weeks. And I totally broke last night to have that. And when I tell you I was fighting demons this morning when I woke up, man, it was so my stomach was in so much shambles. And then I'm working at a place I don't normally work at this morning, and they told me there's a bunch of food in the break room. And I'm like, oh, check it out, see what they got. They had a whole thing of fruit. I was like, I just need a fruit, man. I had so much chicken and carbs and fat last night. I was like, just I need to put something with vitamins in my mouth. And
Bro, that's how it was.
the
I had
spot. So I
so
totally
many.
I get what you mean.
I had so many chicken sandwiches. I think I had like a chicken panini. I had a chicken sandwich. I had chicken tenders and fries. Like, I love eating chicken, but I just felt like I was having it over and over and over again. I reached a point where I was like,
I think you need to expand to different birds.
there weren't other options. That was the only bird they offered was chicken. That was the only offered bird.
That's tragic, man.
But yeah, so Summer League was great. I had a great time, but we can go ahead now and move on to some of our favorite players and performances from Summer League. You know, we talked a bit about Victor Wembanyama. Game 1 wasn't great, but game 2, he was ridiculous. I think he had 27 points. Regardless of which game you talk about, the defense was phenomenal. The shot blocking, the rim
Even when he was
turrets.
looking awful on offense, like he was doing really good at the rim.
And his playmaking too was really solid out there as well.
I thought he was almost being too good at playmaking. You know what I mean? Like he was being too passive sometimes.
Yeah, and maybe that came partially from kind of struggling on offense. I think he shot 2 of 13 in the first game, so he's just got to kind of find his rhythm. It's the same sport in basketball, but whenever people talk about the Euro League versus or like college or the G League versus the NBA, like they always talk about the pace being a lot faster. You know, the level of physicality differs up and down, so it's an adjustment period. Like he's going to be perfectly fine. And again, we saw it in game 2. It seemed like he had already kind of figured out what he needed to do. He did get dunked on by Kai Jones, and the Britney Spears fans went crazy with that one on Twitter. But yeah, I mean, I thought he's going to be perfectly fine. And game 2, he was unbelievable out there. Like he was dominating, knocking down threes. The extension too, like if you see him live, like hopefully we get the chance to go see him live at some point together. But any of you like out there, if you've got the chance to go see Vic live, it's unbelievable to watch him in person. It doesn't make sense. Like he'll go up for a jumper and it's like, oh, that's getting blocked because it's super contested and he's being guarded by a guy who's usually like 6'9", 6'10" or taller. Like Kai Jones, I think it was, or actually no, I think it was against the Blazers. And I think it was like Jabari Walker, who's like a pretty tall guy and he's got a lot of extension. Like any other player in the entire world could have taken that jumper and it would have gotten blocked, but Vic just knocked it down right over him. It's unbelievable. There was this one layup that he took where he went like up and then he thought he was going to get blocked, so he went to the side and got fouled. But I don't know how his arm moved like that, and it like almost touched the rim. At one point, he got a putback dunk where I swear he just stood on his tippy toes to dunk it in. I don't know. It's ridiculous. So if you got the chance to go see Vic, go see, like, watching him in person is a completely different experience.
As someone who's watching him from the TV, so I was watching that first game. My mom was watching too. And she goes, I was kind of explaining to her, she's like, why is Connor so excited about this game? So I was trying to explain to her about like Vic and even Brandon Miller a little bit. I was trying to talk about, what was going on. And her first thing she said is, why does this man keep shooting the ball? And she was talking about Brandon Miller because this team airballed 3 threes in a row. And she didn't even know it was Brandon Miller. She just goes, why is this guy shooting the ball and missing? I was like, Mom, he's like a top 3 pick. He's supposed to be nice. And she's like, oh, okay. And then she saw Vic, she saw Vic playing, but I don't think she really realized how big he was until he went to line up at the free throw line. Like he was, on the inside. And she's like, oh my God, that guy's giant. I'm like, that's the guy. I was like,
that's the guy. Yeah. My Uber drivers were asking me about Vic. Like that whenever there were a few of them that would be like, hey, like, what are you here for? Like I'd be wearing like an NBA shirt or something like that. They're like, are you here for the basketball thing? You here for summer league? And I was like, yeah, I am. And they were asking, they're like, oh, it's crowded and stuff like that. Like, why is that? And I was mentioning Victor Wembanyama, and they were like, oh, I kind of know that guy. One of my Uber drivers, he was asking like how the time was. I was like, great. I got to go see, or it's been kind of packed because, I mentioned Victor Wembanyama. He's like, oh, where's that guy from? Is that the French kid? I was like, yeah, that's him. And he was like, oh, like, what's up with him and Britney Spears? And I was like, well, I don't know, man. We don't need to get into it. But
dude,
like people were asking me.
I feel like the older women who love, the gossip, how there's like that group of like, I feel like either you could say young moms or just like people that love like that gossip about like players and stuff. Like I was at work today and this lady was talking about Harry Styles gossip to me. And I just feel like the Britney Spears Victor thing was like feeding their craving for that. They were just like eating that up. I feel like that.
It's
like,
a crazy crossover that makes no sense.
And all these people who would otherwise have no idea who Victor Wembanyama is, and they probably still don't. But they're just so eating it up. And I think it's so funny.
It is. I know you mentioned Brandon Miller. I guess we can talk a little bit about him, kind of how he's played or how he played, because I don't think he's playing anymore at this point.
Yeah.
Not great. In Summer League, he averaged about 17.3 points per game, shot 35% from the field, 26% from deep. A lot of fouls. There was that thing
10
where
foul game. Was that his first or second game where he had 10 fouls in like 18 minutes?
I don't think he ever got up to 10. I don't think he got up to 10, but it was.
I thought he fouled out. It might have been
I don't
8.
think so.
Okay,
I think it was like 8.
It was a lot. He might have had 8 at
fouls.
halftime, and then he just decided to stop playing defense so he wouldn't foul out.
Yeah, so he wasn't great. And one thing I always say about Summer League is that, like, well, Ryan is super blurry right now.
You keep going, man. I'll come back eventually.
The webcam is taking him completely out of focus. But one thing I always say about Summer League, especially for like we saw this with Jabari Smith Jr. last year, like there's those wings sometimes that kind of need to be set up a little bit more. And I think that's going to be Brandon Miller, at least for the beginning of his career. There's not a lot of great playmakers out there in Summer League. It's a lot of guys that are looking to get buckets and stuff like that are looking to, just kind of make a name for themselves. You're not going to find a lot of like, the team ball isn't great a lot of times in Summer League. Like you'll see that watching games. And so I think Brandon Miller is going to be fine. Like he didn't have any incredible point guards on his roster alongside him. I think he'll be perfectly fine. We've seen a bunch of players struggle in Summer League before and they ended up being great. I mean, we saw last year Jabari Smith Jr. struggling in Summer League. Why? How are you not coming into focus yet? What is going on?
You keep going, bro. I'm just going to keep turning my head to try to get into focus. I'm listening. You keep
Try putting like a hand in front of it or something.
You keep going, man.
Okay. But
I'll be back.
There you go. All right. He's back. But yeah, Brandon Miller,
man, I got to focus up.
I think Brandon Miller is he's going to be fine. People are going to overreact and everything like that. It is a bit worrying, some of the things that we saw, but yeah. I think it'll be okay.
His percentages were pretty dookie. Like, I think everyone can kind of agree with that.
Yeah.
But I mean, you'd be so dumb if you would say there were not flashes of like a really good player there. Like, there were a lot of really good plays. Even some of the defense he was playing on Vic in the game they played against each other. I thought he looked pretty good against him a lot. Like, I think he didn't get enough credit for. I think a lot of people were just quick to say Vic was playing like doo-doo instead of saying like Brandon Miller low-key had the clamps for a couple possessions.
Yeah, I mean, he looked good out there. He hit Vic with a crossover that kind of made him stumble a little bit, but Vic ended up.
I know he stripped him coming down on a fast break. I think one time too. And
I think
the potential's there, man. Like it wasn't like I was watching him play and I was like, this dude stinks. Like this guy's like there'd be like, okay, he's just bricked 4 threes in a row, but then he would have a couple really good plays. And I think, like you said, I just think he's going to take some time to develop. He's raw. The talent's definitely there, and the game's there, man. But he's not the type of guy that you could plug to like a contending team and he would be putting up crazy numbers. He's gonna have to have like the Jalen Green type of growing pains where he's gonna have like a 5 for 20 game and his team's gonna be awful, but you're just gonna have to deal with it because then he'll turn around a couple games later and drop you 35 points and have a good stat line.
And he'll be playing with a playmaker like LaMelo, on
Yeah,
his
I
team.
think
Like
that'll
once
help
he
a lot
actually gets
too.
to
He doesn't have
Charlotte,
to create as much for himself.
exactly. That'll help a ton from day one. Like the Hornets summer league team was not very good. Like they had some good performances. Nick Smith had a great game the other day, and so did Brandon Miller. He closed it out pretty well, but yeah, overall, just not the best from the Charlotte Hornets, who are a bit of a weird team. I mean, Kai Jones dunked on Victor Wembanyama, so that's a win right there.
Well, that's gonna be his career highlight right there, man. He's gonna tell his grandbabies about that one.
It was so funny because one of my friends was like, Kai Jones would be super entertaining if he was, good at
Oh,
basketball. And then
absolutely,
literally
man.
5 minutes later, he dunks on Vic, like almost immediately after that. So, yeah, he kind of spoke it into
Didn't he dunk on somebody
existence.
else too, and then get dunked on like in another game? Or am I totally mistaken? I swear he
I
had
mean,
another good dunk.
Kai Jones is the guy that dunks on a lot of people and gets dunked on probably equally as much. So I wouldn't be surprised. I don't remember exactly which one you're talking about,
If you
but
know, you can comment below. But I'm pretty sure. I swear, I don't know if it was just the way they were marketing it, or if it was just like people just did not care, or they cared too much. But I swear, every other like notification was like, so and so got posted, or like, oh, another summer league poster.
bro,
Like,
there were so many. No, you were not wrong.
that's
Like,
what you know.
in the first couple days, I was like, I think I
Like the
tweeted this out. I
Trey,
was like,
were you
I
there for
had
the Trey
never
Man one
seen.
too?
No, Trey Man one
That was
was Salt Lake
before.
City. Yeah,
Okay.
unfortunately, that would have been sick. But yeah, no, the posers were ridiculous. Like guys were going for highlights, which is another super fun thing with the summer league, is because a lot of guys are just trying to make highlight plays, and so there were a lot of people trying posters. It was super fun.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was there live for the Kai Jones poster over Vic, and the arena went like dead silent. Like they were like, or everyone went crazy, and then after like a few moments, everyone went dead silent.
Mm-hmm.
So there were a lot of posters. You're not wrong at all. So that
That's
was one of
funny.
those things that if you go to Summer League, look out for that. You will see a million posters.
Speaking of, it's funny because you lagged a little bit on my end, and it sounded like you said posers, and you're like, there are a lot of summer league posers this year. I'm like,
I
oh,
guess you could say that.
But speaking of someone who people thought was a poser and then turned the heck up, Jabari Smith, man, I know that turnaround must have been pretty sick to watch live, because the memes on Twitter of him dropping 4 points at halftime, and they're like, oh, he's so awful and all this other stuff. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm guilty. I was hanging out with one of my buddies, and he told me Jabari Smith's stat line, and I was pulling the overrated card out. And then I watched the end of the game. I was like, yeah, maybe he was just having a bad half, because he had like 31 second half points and then had 36 points the next game.
Yeah,
Not to mention that stupid game winner in the first.
He scored
game.
18 in the third quarter, I think, alone after that like 4-point half or something like that. I think it was around like 18 in the third. So yeah, he was amazing. I mean, it was a lot of stuff that you were hoping to see from Jabari, where he was attacking off the dribble, finishing through contact. It wasn't just, I mean, he was also knocking down like just shooting over guys, like hitting those jumpers, which is what you want to see.
We didn't see a lot of that last year, though.
Yeah, it's a skill that you were hoping you would see right away, but he was actually showing it a lot more here in Summer League. And people are always going to say like, oh, it's just Summer League and this and that. But it was like genuinely impressive. Again, he feels like a player that probably needs a bit more setting up. And I do think having like Fred VanVleet and Almond Thompson as playmakers for him are going to be helpful. But there was a lot of times he was making the offense on his own. And sure, it's going to be harder against NBA competition, but I mean, he just looked in general a lot more comfortable going to those roles, attacking the basket again, like I said, finishing through contact. That's not stuff we really saw from Jabari Smith. And the defense, again, was really good alongside the offense. He had that game winner that we talked about. Like, it felt like he was kind of feeling himself out there, which is cool to see. Like, again, people like to kind of write off these players after one season, and Jabari was one of those guys that a lot of people immediately have written off, despite him being one of the youngest players in the league, not really having a great playmaker on the roster. It feels like he's starting to put in the work, and I'm hoping this kind of translates over, because I think he could be really good this upcoming season, and I'd love to see him prove a lot of people wrong for doubting him like immediately off the bat.
Speaking of really good, man, I know we didn't get to see much of it because he got injured, but Amon Thompson looked nice, man.
Oh, he's so
really
good. The
liked his
athleticism is crazy. There was one play where he jumped up and went it for a layup and like switched hands, and it felt like he was levitating. Like, it literally feels like he jumps and just floats for like a straight minute. It's unbelievable. Both him and his brother, like Asar Thompson, also was amazing. Like, the defense that he showed in particular was crazy. This past game, which I was unfortunately not at, I think it was yesterday, but I think he had like 7 steals or something like that. Maybe not that many, but he had like a bunch of steals and blocks. And it was kind of frustrating watching the first couple of games with the Pistons, because he really wasn't getting the ball ever. Like, he just wasn't super involved. But then as of recently, he's getting more involved in the plays. Like, he had one thing where I think he got the steal, kicked it out, ran in transition, caught the lob or something like that. Like it was some type of play where you saw both the defense and the athleticism on the offensive end. He can be really special with Ivan, Cade, that backcourt over there. And yeah, like you said, it's a shame we didn't get to see more of Amon because he also looked great. And I think I'm sad that Fred VanVleet's going to start over him because I'd love to see him start alongside Jalen Green from day one. Like the athleticism and the posters that we could see from that backcourt would be incredible. But no, he looked super good out there. So did Tari Eason. Like really, the Rockets in general.
I've been a day one Tari Eason truther, man.
You have.
I want the Sixers to get him very badly when we. I think it was a pick. What picked it? Who do we end up picking?
He was in the 20s. I want to say he was picked like 21.
No, I'm trying to think. What who did we draft? Was it the Jaden Springer draft? No, because we traded. Oh no! We ended up trading. Yeah, it was Jaden Springer. It was Jaden Springer draft. Wait, no.
Was it? I thought no. He was a couple.
Was he a rookie last year?
Yeah, he was a rookie last year.
Oh, we
Tari
traded.
Eason was at pick set.
We traded the pick from
17.
We traded the pick from Melton.
Okay, yeah.
But he was on like he and EJ Liddell. Those were the two guys. I mean, EJ unfortunately got injured, but he's been playing summer league and looking like all right. I guess I don't know if he's really done anything crazy. But Tari Eason, man, that dude is. I don't even know a good comp for him, but I just think he's going to be so good once he gets a consistent role. I think he's really nice.
Oh, I like a lot of what I saw. I mean, he was knocking down threes. He's a guy that makes a lot of hustle plays too, like plays hard-nosed defense. He just feels like a spark plug.
Light, but I mean, it's almost like more athletic, better offense.
I think that's who he's going to be. He's going to be one of those like A+ role players that any team would love to have that can knock down shots, make hustle plays, defend, like just do a little bit of everything. I feel like that is kind of the role that I see for him in the league. And that's great. Like if you can get that type of player at pick 17, that's a huge win. So I'm excited for what Tari Eason's going to bring to the table this upcoming season. I mean, between him, between Amon Thompson, between Jabari Smith Jr., like the Rockets had a great summer league. And we talked a little bit about Amon, also talk about Asar. Like I said, he also looked really good. I liked what I saw from him. Jalen Duren looked good out there. He was dribbling like Kevin Durant at sometimes, like taking guys off the dribble.
I will never forgive the Hornets, man, for not drafting that man. That was such an L. Like Mark Williams is cool and all, man, but Jalen Duren literally, you could not have had a better prospect for that team that was down bad for center. Like he literally fits everything they could have needed. And I don't know. Like I still have some hope for Mark Williams, but I agree with you, man. Jalen, he's awesome.
I mean, Mark was still really good. So I think it'll end up working out fine. But yeah, that was, especially in the moment, that was like, what are they doing? Jalen Duren, Duren looked incredible out there. He was really good too. Just a player that was too good to be out there at Summer League, really, which, a lot of these guys are. They're going to play the first few games and then sit because ultimately they are too good. But it's good to get those reps. So those guys were going off. I got to talk about Chet real quick. Chet has looked amazing. I don't think he's going to play anymore. We're playing our second to last game right now, probably because we're like on the verge of making the playoffs that they have, but I don't think we're going to end up making it because of a tiebreaker. But let me bring up Chet's stats exactly right.
You keep going. I'll pull them up.
I just saw them. I think he was just right here. Oh, it's because I'm looking at assists per game. That's why. Let me go back.
Talk about his dimes, bro.
Yeah, Chet. I mean, doing a little bit, but yeah, I think he was averaging about 20.5 points per game. Shot 56% from the field. He was grabbing about 9.5 rebounds per game. 2.5 dimes. Do not sleep. 1 steal and 3.5 blocks per game, which is really what is kind of his calling card. He looked incredible out there. Like, again, the rim protector that we've desperately been missing, the defensive anchor. We didn't really play any 7-footers last year outside of Mike Muscala, who ended up trading. And Mike Muscala is great. I loved having him in Oklahoma City, but he's not a rim protector, even though he is a 7-footer. He's not a great defender. We were I think the 13th ranked defense in the league without a true rim protector or
it was all perimeter D, man. All perimeter D hustle.
Yeah, it was that. It was guys, stepping up and playing bigger than they are down low too. Like Kenrich Williams was playing some small ball center at times. Jay Will, who's a bigger body, but he's 6'9". Like, having Chet is going to make a world of difference. And I don't think people are realizing the impact that he's going to make from day one. I think he's going to average over 2 blocks per game in his rookie season. Some of the shots that he was knocking down too looked really good. The first couple of games, it was a bit hit or miss, but he seemed to really find his rhythm, especially the last game that he played. He looked phenomenal out there. I can't remember the exact stat line, but it was electric watching him. Like, finally, we have a lob threat that we can consistently go to, someone that can run a pick and roll, knock down a jumper right there in the elbow, just kind of spot up there. His 3-point shot wasn't great. I think he shot like 17% from deep, but he wasn't shooting very many of those. I think he'll be fine. He'll get more open looks again when Shea and Giddey are setting him up a little bit. I'm not worried about that in general.
Absolutely.
But Chet looked incredible out there. Again, really excited to see what he brings to the table. And I think people are underestimating the impact that he's going to make from day one on the roster.
I can't wait to see him against some of this top tier big man talent. I think because that's been the biggest like thing with him is everyone's like, oh, it won't matter when he's up against Jokic and Embiid and Towns and these guys. So I can't wait for that first game where he plays against like a really big bodied, physical, like offensive center. I just can't wait to see the matchup. I think it'll be fun.
They tried to set him up with some really tough matchups like our first week of the season. Our first week last year, our first 3 games, I think it was Timberwolves, Nuggets, Timberwolves again. So it was like Gobert and Towns and Jokic in like the first 3 games.
Who do y'all play first this year?
They haven't put the schedule out yet. So
wait, really?
I'm assuming it'll. Yeah, I don't think it's out yet.
Crazy. It's so funny how they do that because the MLB schedule, they already released next year's schedule for MLB.
Yeah, they do that super early. I'm guessing it's probably because they're waiting to see what storylines develop over the course of this offseason.
Oh, absolutely. They're waiting to figure out when they do that Miami-Portland game.
Exactly. Yeah, they're trying to figure out when to plan that, or like if Harden gets traded, they're like, oh, we got to put the Sixers Harden game kind of at this prime time. So yeah, they're going to wait on stuff like that. But I imagine they're probably going to give us some matchups. I think that first Chet Vic game in particular is going to be really fun, watching the two of them go up against each other in that first game. So yeah, I do want to ask you about Jane Springer. He was looked really good in Summer League. He's averaging 26 points per game, the second most out of any player. Playing some good defense. Is this finally the season where Jane Springer gets the opportunity to play basketball?
Well, the war criminal Doc Rivers, who refuses to play rookies, is gone. Even though Nick Nurse did kind of like exile Malachi Flynn and Delano Ban, so he doesn't have the best track record either with rookies. But I mean, he did play. He played Scotty Barnes at freaking point guard his rookie year basically, and then he played. What was the other tall guy that they had running? I forget his name, but it was another tall guy that it was like a rookie last year, undrafted. Oh, was it Koloko? Is that his name?
I mean, Koloko was the second round big.
Oh, maybe was that for the Raptors?
Yeah, he was.
I just remember they had some big that really wasn't like supposed to really. I don't know. There wasn't really anything about him that was too crazy, but then Nick Nurse just kept playing him nonstop, and he kind of balled out.
You might be thinking of Koloko.
Is it Koloko? Well, no, because it makes me think of Bruno Caboclo. I know those are two different people. It might be Koloko.
I'll take a look at the roster and see if he's on roster. I mean, you might even be thinking of Delano Banton. Like he's a
it was a big guard. It was a big. But Ban didn't really get a lot of playing time either. That's why I was talking about Springer. So hopefully Nick Nurse does. But honestly, the Sixers are kind of have to because the wing depth is nothing, and you lost Shake. So I mean, there's a guard ball handling player that you need right there, and you took him with the first round pick. And this is gonna be his 3rd year. He's done everything at the G League level. At some point, he's got to throw this man into NBA minutes and just see what he's got. Like, I don't know. The Sixers bench has always been kind of like a weird kind of conundrum. I feel like it's always like either really good or really awful. There's never any in between. So I feel like go for it, man. Just throw him in there. He looked good. People worried about his offense, but I mean, his shooting wasn't awful. He shows he can, do other stuff than shoot threes. Which not that he's known for shooting threes, but I feel like when you have Joel Embiid on offense, it's just him pounding the paint, and everyone else is waiting for their shot. But I don't know, man. I think especially with the Harden news kind of in limbo, if we somehow lose Harden out, I trust Jane Springer with some heavy guard minutes. I like it.
Yeah, I hope he finally gets to get some run. Up to this point in his career, through his first 2 seasons, he's played 16 games. And he averaged 3 minutes per game in the first 2 games of his career in his first season, and 5.6 in his 16 games after that. So
I can't tell you how many times the Sixers had like decimated by injuries, and they're like, Sixers have 6 players out tonight with injury. Jane Springer is also out in the G League. I'm like, bro, that's gonna be the best time to finally give him some minutes.
Just bring him up, let him try.
Yeah.
So,
but no, I'm excited for it, man. I think it'd be pretty cool. And then I think we had one other guy on our list too that you were really high on.
Keontae George has been hooping.
He's on Utah, right?
Yes, Keontae has been crazy so far. He's done for the summer league. He hurt his ankle, so he's not going to play anymore. But averaged 25 points or 21.7 points per game. He shot over 50% from the field, over 44% from deep. 6.3 assists. Like, he was amazing. And the stats don't matter as much as basically what you see out there, but
Mhm.
like the shot making was incredible. The step back threes, he broke some guys' ankles and nailed a three just straight away, attacking the basket too. He's a bit thinner of a guy with his frame. And so the defense wasn't incredible, but I liked how he was kind of competing out there, even though he is a thinner framed guy. He was still battling to try and get steals, get in passing lanes, to try and body up on guys. So I like that. The passing, like I think I mentioned the passing already, but really everything in between was great for Keontae George. And the Jazz, they've got Larry Markkinen, they've got Walker Kessler, even have John Collins now as a front court guy. They've got Taylor Hendricks. Like they have a bunch of guys that project as potential fits there in the front court, but they're still looking for like guards of the future. And I think Keontae George immediately comes in as one of those guys that I think is going to make an impact from day one and be really good in this league. I loved what I saw from him. They've also got Bryce Sensabaugh, who hasn't played in the summer league, who's kind of a bucket getter. So hopefully he gets some run out there. And I think he also could be kind of like a wing player for them for the future. But really, they've kind of got that front court figured out for the most part. At least it seems like they do. They're still trying to figure out the guards. And so getting a guy like Keontae George, who so far through summer league seems like he could be a hit for them, is huge. And again, I've loved what I've seen from him. He had like a 30 piece, I think even multiple 30 pieces, just, balling out there. And Jazz fans are in a great spot right now. Like they went from a year ago trading two of the best players in modern franchise history to now having Walker Kessler, Larry Markkinen, Keontae George, Taylor Hendricks, Bryce Sensabaugh, like all these different guys.
And a lot of draft picks.
Yeah, and a bunch of draft picks. Like I don't think they could have been in a better spot, or I don't think Jazz fans could have imagined being in a better spot a year ago than they are now. I just dropped like a whole YouTube video talking about it, so that's why I've kind of got this off the top of my head. But like, yeah, the plug. But no, for real, the Jazz are in such a good spot, and I think Keontae's a big part of that.
One last guy I want to shout out before we kind of switch gears here is Turk Smith, undrafted guy for Philly.
Yeah,
dude is nice, man, and I hope the Sixers don't mess us up with him because I think he's someone that like we could actually give a full roster spot to, and he would be a good contributor. He's like a taller guard, and we're just so short on depth and like anyone with height, so that can play a wing position potentially. So I hope they mess it up like they did with Isaiah Joe, and they give that kid a chance.
I mean, or you can go ahead and bring him in, not give him any minutes, cut him, let him go over to OKC, and he thrives.
I mean, I'm pretty sure. I don't know if I'm pretty sure I saw he shot like 40% from three. Like you have the I
have the number pulled up, 43% from three on 7 attempts per game. So he's looked really good. I didn't get a chance to see him play as much. I got to see him for a little bit when I watched a little bit of one Sixers game, and he looked good. But I can't remember who they were playing. But he does look good. And again, like you said,
undrafted, man, he looks really polished.
I talked to a friend of mine who does like kind of some draft stuff, and they also said they were surprised he didn't end up getting picked. Like they thought he was someone that was worthy of being a second-round pick at the very least. So, I mean, maybe the Sixers got one of those undrafted finds.
ACC was also kind of mid last year in hoops, so I'm guessing that that kind of got looked down on a bit. You know what I mean? I feel like sometimes when the whole conference as a whole doesn't play too well, their players don't get valued as much. Like, SEC has been kind of dominating college hoops recently. It's kind of funny because, usually, it's football. The SEC has been really good. Like, how good Bama was last year. Auburn's always good. So it's just funny how it kind of changed on that because I feel like ACC with Duke and UNC and UVA, like I feel like it's always like those ACC schools getting all the top picks. So it's interesting. Kind of shifted.
Yeah, I mean maybe that works out to y'all's benefit because Terquavion Smith could end up being the steal of the undrafted free agents. One other undrafted free agent that has been really good is Colin Castleton for the Lakers. He's been really good. Max Christie deserves a shout. He's also been good for the Lakers in the summer league so far. I think there's a chance he actually gets some run this season in the rotation. I don't think it's a lot because the Lakers have a lot of guys to play.
Yeah, they're deep.
But I could see him getting some minutes. Yeah, they really helped out with that depth over the course of the past month or so since the season is wrapped up. Yeah, I mean, I think those are the main guys. There are a lot of other guys we could give shouts to as well. This is not like all the guys that have been playing well in summer league. There's so many others. A real quick shout to Casey Wallace of the Thunder. He had a great first game, knocked down 6 threes. Super excited for him. The offense has been a bit up and down since then, but the defense has consistently looked amazing, which is really his calling card. So shout out to my guy, Casey Wallace. Also, Ousmane Dieng has been killing it for us as of late. The last game especially, where he had like a 20-piece, some of the handles that he was showing off, the defense. He was supposed to be more of a raw prospect when we drafted him last year, and that showed. But so far through summer league, he's looking like maybe he'll be ready to contribute at some level in this season, which would be a huge luxury. Like, we don't even really need him to contribute right now because we have a lot of guys who can play. But if he's able to do so, that's a big win. So, yeah, those are kind of the biggest shout outs that I guess we can go ahead and give. Also, Kenneth Lofton Jr. just is too good to be playing Summer League. He was just destroying guys out there like you typically see from him. So yeah, that's kind of our Summer League breakdown. Real quick, we can go ahead and move on now to talking about some of our breakout players that we want to get into for this section of the video. Like I said, I've got some names pulled up over here. Ryan got some names from some of y'all that you can go ahead and start with, I guess, some of those names. So if there's any there that
I'm just gonna kind of throw a lot of these are gonna kind of overlap.
That's what I figured, yeah.
And we don't have to go because I know we're both a little short on time, so we don't want to go too crazy on any of these people, but we'll just kind of like briefly some people that I think are interesting. Jalen Johnson from my boy Dylan. I think that's a very interesting one because I feel like he was kind of like highly touted, was okay at Duke, and then he's kind of just been like in and out of the rotation for Atlanta, since he's been over there. So what do you think about him?
Yeah, I mean, he played a decent role this past season. Again, it wasn't anything too crazy, but he showed some flashes, which I liked. He could be even more part of the rotation if DeAndre Hunter gets dealt, which is a rumor they're still looking to trade either Clint Capella or DeAndre Hunter potentially. There's been rumors of maybe it being a Pascal Siakam deal if that ever comes to fruition. So maybe if one of those wings ends up getting dealt, he gets more run, which I think he'd be really good in that role. They do also have like AJ Griffin. They brought in Sadiq Bey. So there's a couple different names kind of at that 3 spot for them to potentially bring out. But Jalen Johnson can also play some 4 too. He can do a little bit of everything. I do like what I saw from him. Again, like you said, pretty highly touted. Didn't play great at Duke. Didn't end up going as high in the draft as some people thought that he might. And he ends up in a situation in Atlanta, which is kind of weird. I feel like they've got a lot of players who are like good or like solid, but
like AJ, you can throw AJ Griffin in that too. Like you got Sadiq Bey, AJ Griffin, DeAndre Hunter. They have a lot of like, and then even before them, they had Cam Reddish too. Like they have all these like really like
they have interesting wings that like. Yeah, you're just waiting to see what you get out of them. I loved what I saw from AJ Griffin this past season. I think he should have played a lot more than he did. So I do think Jalen Johnson can break out, but it is kind of a matter of how does the wing situation sort itself out over there in Atlanta? Is DeAndre Hunter still there? What type of trade do they make? Is it a Clint Capella trade? Is it a Hunter trade? They've also again got like Sadiq and those other guys. So we'll see what ends up happening. But I do like Jalen Johnson. I think he could be good this upcoming season. Similar to that Hawks note, Onyeka Okongwu is a guy that I mentioned in my video that I made recently about this. I don't know how we keep bringing up my video topics, but I talked about him. If they make the Capella trade instead of it being a DeAndre Hunter trade and they move Onyeka Okongwu into the starting spot, I think he could be amazing. A bit more stretchability than Clint Capella. I think he only made like 4 threes last season. So he's not like a big time shooting big, but at least he'll shoot them and Capella doesn't. And teams are probably going to have to at least keep an eye on him out there. And at the same time, he can block some shots. He plays bigger than he is. I think he's 6'9", can knock down some middies, which Capella doesn't shoot. So I think ultimately he might be a better fit for what this team is trying to do going forward than Capella. He's also a lot younger. So if I'm the Hawks, I'm probably trying to move Capella and let Okongwu start because I think he could be really good from day one as a starter. So he's a guy that I've been looking at for a while. He's one of my favorite players when he was drafted. I'm just kind of waiting for him to get that opportunity to truly break out like I think he can when he finally gets a start.
Yeah, man. So moving on from the Hawks, I got a couple of Sixers on here. We have Tyrese Maxey, DeAnthony Melton, Paul Reed, which I'll start with this. I think the Paul Reed one is interesting to me because a lot of people think that Paul Reed is going to get a lot more time at the 4 this year, which I think will be very, very interesting. And you know how Nick Nurse really likes to utilize those big lineups and he likes to play.
Oh, he loves tall, lengthy guys.
Tall, lengthy guys with huge wingspans, man. That is Nick Nurse's bread and butter. So I'm very, very interested to see how Paul Reed's role carves out because he did kind of break out in weight last year. He finally got into the rotation. He was another one of those guys the Sixers just kind of spammed in the G League, and then they wouldn't give him any run.
And he'd be putting up like 40 a game. He'd look like Wilt Chamberlain in the G League.
I'm saying, man. But so that'll be very interesting to see what kind of role they put him in. And if he does play more at the 4, it'll be interesting because like he doesn't have an awful shot, but he has a shot. But I don't know, man. He's not like a stretch. He's not going to be freaking replacing Niang as our main backup 4, So it'll be interesting. And Maxey, I think, really also kind of is going to depend on the Harden thing. If Harden does get dealt and we don't get a lot of guard play back, I think Maxey could be potential all-star if the Sixers, still stay afloat in the playoff race. I don't think if the Sixers they fall out, after losing Harden, I don't think so. But if Maxey's putting up 25 plus a game, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, man. And then Melton, I like Melton a lot, man, but I just think he's kind of like that one of those A+ role players you're kind of referring to earlier. Like, I think if he was put on an awful team, he could probably put up like over 20 a game. and he plays good defense. But I think he's best served as like, your top guard off the bench,
Yeah,
and maybe it's
it feels like he kind of is who he is at this point. Like he could get better, and I think he can, but I don't think he's like going to break out necessarily.
Yeah.
Maxey, though, is one player that I mentioned in that video. Again, it's going to depend on the Harden trade. If he gets moved, I think Maxey could make that all-star leap. I think he's got it in him. Everybody knows he can be an all-star at some point. It's just a matter of if or when that happens. So maybe we see that from Maxey's upcoming season if Harden gets dealt. The Paul Reed one is interesting. It's kind of weird because they brought back Montrezl Harrell, which I don't quite understand because he was just not good this past season.
And he didn't want to be there.
Yeah, he didn't want to be there either. So I don't understand. Maybe like Nick Nurse said he's got something in store for him. But Paul Reed does feel like a guy, now that you mentioned it, that would probably play in a Nick Nurse type of system. So maybe we do see him more out there. Yeah, I mean, Maxey, like I said, is a guy that I brought up. I didn't really think about Paul Reed like that, I guess, because he had just been signed back, so I wasn't really considering him. But I do like those takes, especially the Paul Reed one. I think that one's in particular pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm. And we'll go through a couple more. We have some Pacers. We have Andrew is it Nembhard? Is that how you say
Nembhard?
Nembhard, Mathurin, and Toppin. That's from my guy Pacers Goat.
Yeah, I think any of those guys. Yeah, I think I just punched my computer. My whole camera shook. Yeah, I think any of those guys. I mean, Mathurin and Nembhard are kind of the easy ones because they're second-year players. Like Mathurin was the 6th overall pick. I think it's very clear he can break out. Same with Nembhard, who was killing it in Summer League. He was another guy who was just too good to be out there. I think he could be really good as another guard over there. But to me, Obi Toppin is the really interesting one because he's not a second-year player. He's been playing in the league for a few seasons. He hasn't really gotten a big opportunity yet. He played with the Knicks for a few years. Never really got a starting opportunity. But at the end of this past season, when Julius Randle got hurt and didn't play for the last, I think it was 5-6 games, and Obi Toppin started in his spot, he put up like over 20 points per game. He was really efficient in those moments too. Like he was amazing out there. And now in Indiana, he might have a chance to start. It might be him. It might be Jarris Walker. We're not sure quite yet. There's rumors that they're interested in a Siakam deal potentially too, which I feel like they should just let the young guys play. But if that happens, that'll also muddy the waters. But I do think Obi Toppin could be starting. And even if he isn't starting, I think he's going to get a lot of minutes playing for that team. And now he's got Tyrese Halliburton there as a playmaker for him in a more featured role. Like the fast break with this team, I think that's going to be their style of play. Bruce Brown, according to the numbers, is one of the best fast break players in the league. So you've got him, you've got Tyrese Halliburton, you've got Miles Turner, who can also stretch the floor and space out so he's not going to be clogging the paint. Obi Toppin, who just throws down some ridiculous dunks and can catch oops. Like Mathurin, too, is highly athletic. Like this team is going to be so much fun. And I think that's a play style that benefits Obi Toppin a lot. Like if they give him those opportunities to go out there, use his skill set, run in transition, I think Obi could be really good. That's one of my favorite picks for a breakout player this season. And I think he's kind of being slept on as maybe a most improved player kind of guy.
Ooh, I rock with that. And not to hate on Mathurin or Nembhard, but I'm with you that, I think Toppin is like, he might be the kind of cliche pick at this point, but just a guy in a new place, new role. He has a skill set that they don't really have there at all. And I just think it's going to be really impactful on their team and hopefully on his career. Yeah.
They're looking for that starting four still. Like Jarris Walker projects to be that kind of guy. Same thing with, of course, the, addition of Obi Toppin, but they're still trying to figure it out. They're not quite sure who is going to be that guy long-term going forward yet. I mean, it could be either one of those guys. And if Obi Toppin has a breakout, it makes things a lot clearer potentially for the Pacers.
I agree, man. I agree. And then another player that my boy had on the same tweet is Markelle Fultz. What's your take on him?
It's tough.
Is he kind of what he is at this point? Like, is he just a solid guard off the bench?
I mean, I think he's a fine starter. Like I like Fultz, and I still think he can have like, how old is he at this point? Like probably like 25 at this point.
Yeah, however old Tatum is.
He's 25. He just turned 25. I still think Fultz is more in the tank, and he's been really good these past few seasons. Like he's, I think, flown a little bit under the radar, but at the same time, it's so hard because they have so many guards over there. Like they've got Anthony, Fultz, Suggs, Black now over there too.
I still don't know how they haven't made a deal yet.
I think something's got to come before the season. I don't see any way they have all those guards in that rotation coming into the season. Like those guys need minutes. So while I do like Markelle Fultz a lot, I think just with having so many guards now on the roster, it's hard for him to really have a breakout type of season because there are so many guards who need to be utilized in that rotation. It's not like they can say, okay, you're the lead guard going forward, because if you take Anthony Black at the 6th overall pick, someone who is a great playmaker, really solid defender, but can't really shoot like that, when the Magic already have problems with not being able to shoot, I think he probably projects more as your long-term point guard. That's kind of the role I like from the most. I don't really see that working super well with Markelle Fultz out there, who's another guy who can't really shoot consistently.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think the Magic are going to have a lot of questions that have to be answered, I think, with this season with that guard rotation. I hope Fultz ends up working out there. And maybe it is like, maybe they end up trading him if it's not this season, like the off season or something like that. Like they decide that, okay, Anthony Black is the one we're going with here. And, they end up deciding to trade Markelle Fultz. And maybe it's a new destination where he finally gets a chance to break out a little bit. So I don't know. It's just tough. I'd love to see him be one of those breakout players, but with the logjam, it's hard to say.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to go one more from the Twitterverse. Let's see what we got here. We already talked about Jabari Smith a little bit, so I don't think we need to go about him again. But I think we're both in agreement that with the new playmaking that they hopefully have at the one,
he could have a really good year
with Thompson and Van Vliet, that hopefully he can step it up.
Mm-hmm.
We have Şengün here, which is interesting to me, just because I feel like if anything, there's going to be less volume for there to go around in Houston. And I feel like Şengün has a pretty good skill set to, go away from volume. You know what I mean? Like he's like people always have that meme of like Şengün is Charmander, Sabonis is Charmeleon, and Jokic is Charizard. Like that's one of my favorite basketball memes I see. And I feel like I don't want to say that he can't get to that Charmeleon role, but I personally don't see him as like that go-to guy on offense. I think he's more of a complimentary piece, but what do you think?
Yeah. It's hard also with the additions, like with Fred VanVleet coming into the fold, he's going to take a bunch of shots. It's hard to say anyone on the Rockets is going to necessarily like break out in terms of just overall production. I think Şengün can be really good. Like I think he is a really solid playmaking big that's super interesting there. But, I think I have to see a little bit more of what this team is going to actually look like out there in the court before I say that he's going to be able to break out. Because, again, you're going to have like Fred VanVleet ball handling a little bit. He's not really that much of a stretch big at this point. Like he can step out beyond the 3-point line, but it's not a consistent shot. I think he could be really good, but I'm just not sure how the roles are going to pan out with all the new guys on the team quite yet. Although I do think he could be a breakout type of player. It's hard, again, kind of with the Markelle Fultz thing, not knowing quite how the rotation and everything is going to shake out. I mean, they didn't bring in like a Brook Lopez or something, so he still will be the starting center, but we don't really know what that's going to necessarily look like. Like, what is his role on the offense going to be?
And then one other center is Mark Williams before we move on. And I know we touched on him a little bit. Do you think that there's a chance for him to break out in a way this year, or what do you think his ceiling is?
I think for sure. I mean, he was great defensively this past season. His offense is still coming along, but I think having LaMelo Ball, who we didn't get to play with for most of last season, alongside him this year is going to be huge. Again, a playmaker for him. So I like Mark Williams a lot. I think having that defensive anchor, he's finally a center that's not Mason Plumlee for LaMelo, which I love because I was sick of watching him play alongside Mason Plumlee. So I'm really excited for what he can do over there for Charlotte. And I think he can be really good. Again, already a really solid defender. If the offense comes along a bit, he could be, the starting center of the future for the Hornets. I think he can be and will be. So.
And that one was from Richie, by the way. I want to make sure I shout out everyone that was giving us these things. And then the Şengün one was from I'm so sorry if I'm butchering your name, but Karem Uger, maybe? I don't know, man. I'm so sorry if that's wrong. But I appreciate everyone that commented on the tweet to give, Connor some people to talk about. We had a list, but we thought that it'd be cool to see who you guys kind of wanted us to, ramble on about.
Yeah. And just a couple more guys. I think we touched on most of the guys who are actually on the list already. Yeah. We talked about Obi Toppin, Jalen Duren a little bit earlier, Jabari Smith, Mark Williams, Tyrese Maxey. The only two guys we really didn't touch on are Jalen Williams, J-Dub for the Thunder. And I don't need to talk about him too much because he was second in Rookie of the Year voting. I think y'all can tell that he can probably break out for this team going forward.
I would say last year was his breakout year because everyone knew he was going to be good, but I don't think they knew he was going to be that good. I would argue he already broke out in a way.
Yeah, that's true.
He can break out to the all-star level, but I think last year was a pretty big breakout for him, in my opinion.
Yeah. That makes sense. And again, kind of like we talked about with when we talk about with like Benedict Mather and Andrew Nembhard, like those are guys that kind of project that could be breakout players. Same thing with Jalen Williams, where I think people can kind of tell that he's got a shot at breaking out. Last one is Jordan Poole, who is traded over to the Wizards. He's got the opportunity now to be a 1, maybe 2 option, depending on how his role looks alongside Kyle Kuzma. I just think this could be a good change of scenery for him after the whole Draymond Green punching him in the face situation and him not having a good season this last year. I mean, just 2 years ago at this point, I guess he was, or actually, no, just literally over a year ago now, he was the sixth man on a championship team. So hopefully he's able to get back to that type of player in a new starting role. I think he could be really good. Yeah, you have anything you want to add about Jordan Poole?
Not really, man. I just think he's gonna get crazy volume. I think I kind of wish Kuzma wasn't there because Kuzma is kind of funny because I feel like there might be some memes of them like stealing the ball from each other. You know what I mean? Because I feel like it's gonna be like I don't forget who the kid's name is, but the one that's like dribbling the ball nonstop.
Julian Newman, yeah,
and they're like Kyle Kuzma when Jordan Poole calls for the ball and like vice versa. But I think it'll be interesting, man. I mean, there's not a lot of people to have a high volume over there. I mean, they have a lot of young players. There's Bilal, who a lot of people I know have been kind of raving over his defense and his potential. Denny might have a chance to break out. Kispert and his three. So there's a couple other guys there that can take some shots. Tyus Jones is there too. I mean, I wouldn't put him in the young player range, but you know what I mean. Other guys that can shoot the ball potentially. Yeah. But I don't know, man. I don't know if he's going to get to that all-star level. I think it's going to be one of those things where he might put up like 25 a game for a team that's like the 11th seed, and then people are going to be pissed he's not an all-star. I think it might be one of those things.
Yeah, it's also tough because the East is getting better. So I think the Wizards are probably going to be, if not the worst team in the conference, they're going to be one of the worst ones.
Absolutely.
So I think it will be a situation where he's putting up a lot of buckets, probably on a bad team. Maybe eventually that translates into them being a good team. But yeah, I think it's going to be a season where we just see what Jordan Poole can do in kind of a more featured role, where I think it'll show a lot about what we're going to see from him in the rest of his career. So yeah, those are kind of our breakout players. If you've got any more, let us know in the comment section below. Also, if you're at this point in the podcast, leave a like. I was supposed to mention that at the beginning of the podcast. I messed up. But if you made it to this point, leave a like and subscribe to the podcast channel. Check out on Spotify and stuff like that. We'll go ahead now and quickly run through our shooter pass section of this podcast. I went on Twitter, asked y'all for hot takes about this upcoming season, about players in Summer League, things like that. I've got some of them written down over here.
I got a tweet pulled up too. Also, if we need some more.
Yeah, tweet pulled. Okay, cool. So the first one I have is that, and I'll send this one over to you first. Actually, maybe I should take this one because it's unrelated first, but OKC finishes as a top 4 seed, has a top 5 defense, and makes the second round, all coming from Thunder Cuddy. I'm gonna go with a contested shot here. Like I'm gonna shoot it a bit hesitantly. It's like someone passed me the ball at like the end of the shot clock, and I kind of like my look, but I'm gonna be like, I gotta take this type of shot. I think we're gonna be good. I think we're gonna be a playoff team this upcoming season. I think top 5 defense isn't impossible. Again, we were 13th without Chet for the entire season, who's one of the best young rim protectors in the league. Right, in Case and Wallace to the equation too. Like we were doing all this stuff defensively without great personnel, and I think our personnel got a lot better this offseason. So I do think top 5 defense isn't out of the realm of possibility. If I had to guess, because we still are a younger team, I would probably hedge it and say I think we'll be top 10 almost for sure, but more like 7, 8-ish. Top 4 seed also feels maybe a little bit high. If I had to pick maybe like a 5 or a 6 for us potentially, maybe 7 or 8, depending on how the season goes. There's a lot of good teams in the West. And then making the second round is really tough too as a young team. So it's like all things I could see happening. And as a biased Thunder fan, I want to say yes to all of these things, but I'm a bit hesitant. So I like the sentiment that the Thunder are going to improve a lot this upcoming season and be good, but I'm not completely sold on everything quite fully.
I'm gonna go ahead and pass, but I'm passing to someone that I think is open because I think this is something like you kind of said. All these things could kind of come to fruition in a way, but I don't think it's good. You're not gonna get all those, I don't think. But I do think the Thunder will be a playoff team. I think they will have a above average defense, and I can see them upsetting someone in the first round. So I think. So I'm gonna pass, but only it's like a wide open shot. Like, oh, he's open. I'll pass. But
yeah, you swung to the corner. You passed up a good shot for a better shot.
I swung the Pops Jr. in the corner. And
there you go.
You got a 40% chance of going in.
Yeah, PJ's over there.
Yeah, so okay. I like that one. I'm gonna go ahead and pull one for you now.
Okay.
All right. Let's see what I'm liking. Oh, here's one. The Timberwolves will figure it out. Anthony Edwards will solidify himself as a top 5 player in the league. That comes from Trace.
I'm going to, again, shoot this one, but it's actually, I think I might take something from you that I'm going to pass it, but
Okay.
it's like an open shooter. Like I've got an open look, but the closeout is coming, and they're leaving their guy down low, open under the basket, so I'm gonna dish it down low.
Yeah.
But I think the Timberwolves are going to kind of figure it out this season. I think they're pretty well set up. I think Jay McDaniels is going to be really good. Anthony Edwards is great, but I don't see Ant being a top 5 player this upcoming season. There's just no way. With Giannis in the equation, with Jokic, with Embiid, with Steph, with Kevin Durant there, with Luka, like that's 6 guys off the top of my head. You know, Devin Booker, Shea broke out this past season too. Like that's 8 guys. Damian Lillard. There's definitely players I'm forgetting too, but just the sentiment is that there's a lot of great players in the league. I think top 5 for him this upcoming season is just a bit too far. I think he can definitely be a top 5 player at some point, but I think it's just a bit too early. I do think the Timberwolves are going to kind of put it together this season, or they've got the opportunity to, although last year they tricked me in the offseason. I picked them to be a top 2 seed in the West.
They tricked me too, man. I completely get that.
They tricked me. I thought they were going to be this great regular season team that in the playoffs wouldn't really be a championship contender, but at least for the regular season, they're going to be really good. That was not the case whatsoever. So maybe I'm getting tricked again, but I think they're going to be a pretty solid team this upcoming season. So I'm going to pass on it overall, but I think it's not that bad of a take.
I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to shoot a contested shot on this one. I think
okay.
We were so high on them last year and they so let us down. And I think expectations are kind of, they're not really even sizzling, I would say. I feel like there aren't really any expectations for him this year for last year. So I'm gonna buy some stock in the Wolves, and I think Ant is what he's going into season 4. Like
Ant is going into this is gonna be his I think this is gonna be his 3rd season, right?
I just feel like this is where
no, 4th season. You're right.
I just feel like this is where people started to take a leap, man. That's where we saw like Tatum take his leap recently, becoming a top player. I think Ant, I don't know if we'll get top 5. That's why I'm shooting contested, but I think Ant solidifying himself as like a top player in the league it's not out of the question. I'm going to rock with it.
Okay. Also, if y'all watching this on video see me looking down at all, the Thunder are playing not a G League, but a Summer League game right now. We're down 8 right now to the Wizards, but guys are playing well. So I keep looking down at that if you're wondering. I'll go ahead now and send one over to you.
Yeah.
This one is that the Clippers will miss the play-in entirely due somewhat to health reasons. And this is coming from JV13. So where are you going on this one? Keep in mind, by the way, these are hot takes that we asked for. Like these aren't just straight up opinions.
I'm going to completely pass on this. Like I'm like doing a full court alley-oop pass, someone's wide open under the basket. Like, or actually, would I pass it out of bounds? Like if I want to pass it so bad, would it pass out of? I think I'd pass out of bounds.
Do you remember when in the game between the Bucks and the Heat in the first round of the playoffs when Giannis got the ball off the tip and immediately threw it to Chris Middleton? He immediately threw it to Chris Middleton. Like, I don't want anything to do with this.
Oh yes. And we were like, why is the best player in the NBA passing the ball?
And he nearly passed it out of bounds. I think that's the type of pass you're going for here.
I just think because like they're in on Harden. I don't know if he's going to end up going there, but if you get Harden, you have Kawhi and PG, you're not missing the playoffs unless all 3 of them freaking something happens. So I do think health will be the reason why they have a failure of a season. But I don't know. Kawhi's been saying he's good. Paul George can't get injured that many times. His podcast, he can't let his podcast down. He's been doing so good on that. He's got to show it on
the podcast is good.
Yeah, I've seen some of it. I like it. And if they end up somehow getting Harden, man, that's gonna be a nasty team. Even without Harden, they're still a really solid team. So I'm gonna pull Giannis and pass it to Middleton because I don't want the ball.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and pass too. I think if there's a reason they would miss the play-in, it would be because of health reasons. But, I mean, even if Kawhi is hurt, Paul George is still there. If Paul George is hurt, Kawhi is there. If both of them are hurt, they've still got Russell Westbrook and some decent players. Like, I think they won't end up missing the play. Even though the West is really good, like, I think it would take some substantial injuries for them to miss it. Like one or both of those guys would have to miss a majority of the season for them to miss the play-in entirely. Like if they ended up being a play-in team, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, they were nearly a play-in team this past season. They dealt with injuries and some other issues. I do think there's a chance they are a play-in team again, but to say that they miss it entirely, I think it would take, again, substantial injuries, which I'm just hoping don't end up happening. So yeah, I'm going to pass too.
All right. So I think we got time for one more. So I'm going to find one that I really like. I'm going to find a juicy one for us.
Okay.
Let's see what we got. A lot of biased Thunder ones here, man.
Yeah, there was a lot of Thunder ones. I tried not to do more than just the one Thunder one because I knew we were going to talk about the Thunder released a decent bit on the podcast already. So,
All right, I got one for you.
okay.
Jason Tatum wins MVP. That is coming from Ashab.
Jason Tatum wins
And
MVP.
while you're thinking that, I'm buying the crap out of this mainly because I'm not buying because I forgot we have our own segment. I'm shooting. I'm taking that jump shot, man, just because I made a tweet I think 2 seasons ago where I said I think Tatum is going to be an MVP like front runner for like the next 5 years, and I got really clowned. And then wasn't he like top 5 MVP candidate last year? If not high, I don't remember what he finished.
I think he finished fourth. I think
fourth?
Yeah, fourth. Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. So and people were calling me like Tatum's good, man, but he's not that good. And like I got a lot of hate. I wish I could find that tweet because a lot of people were kind of hating on me. So I'm gonna buy that because I think the Celtics are going to be the best team in the East as currently constructed, and Tatum's their best player. So I'm gonna buy it.
I'm gonna buy it, or not buy. I guess I'm gonna shoot it. We gotta get the segment through. Yeah, we're shooting. Yeah, I'm gonna shoot it. I'm gonna take the 3. I like this one a lot. Again, like you said, the Celtics are the best team in the East. He's their best player. I'm someone else who thought Tatum would be an MVP at some point. People kind of clown me. If you take a look at some of the other candidates for MVP, like Jokic is of course going to be up there as always with the Nuggets, but I think they got a little bit worse in this offseason. So I think there's a chance they're a little bit worse this upcoming year. You talk about like, Steph Curry, the Warriors have some question marks. Like they traded Jordan Poole. They've now got Chris Paul. They still got some depth issues. So we'll see what happens there. There's like LeBron, Anthony Davis, and the Lakers. Maybe one of them are in conversations, but they were like a really good second half of the season team. Luka's always in conversations, but the Mavericks were just bad in the second half of this past season. Yeah. So we still don't know how they're going to look.
Another one that we had under there a couple of times was Luka MVP, which if the Mavericks are good, I think Luka, as soon as the Mavericks have like a top 3 seeded year, Luka's winning MVP.
Yeah, people have been dying to get him that award. Yeah.
The Mavericks just got to be better first.
Exactly. So like all those guys have question marks. If Dame gets straight to the Heat, I don't think he's a bad potential pick for an MVP type of guy.
Because I can see him dropping 30 a game and the Heat being a top team. I could see it too.
Exactly. So maybe we see something like that from them. Although he'd also have 2 other All-Stars, and typically they don't give that award as much to those type of guys. But he feels like a player they would want to give an MVP to. But but that hasn't happened yet. We still don't know if he is going to the Heat, even though it feels like he is. Like the Bucks were good this past season, but they've got question marks. They're getting older. The Sixers have the question mark with James Harden plus Embiid just won MVP. Like every team that I'm talking about here, every top MVP candidate you would think of has kind of a question mark there. And the Celtics, for me, like there is the question mark of, did trading Marcus Smart, is that going to make them a little bit worse in like some playmaking regards? And is the loss of him, is Kristaps going to outweigh that, which I do think it will. So I think the Celtics are pretty clearly right now the best team as currently constructed in the Eastern Conference.
Absolutely.
So if they're at the top of a really tough Eastern Conference, which even though there are some questions, there are some great teams out there. If they're at the top of the East, Jason Tatum is really good. And, all those other candidates have some questions, even with like Jokic, who I think is probably going to be a lot of people's front runner because he just did win finals MVP. Like he's won the award a couple of times and voter fatigue is not consistent, but there still could be some there. So I don't know. I think there's a number of players that could be in that conversation, but there are some questions surrounding them. I think Jason Tatum as a dark horse MVP candidate is a great pick. And again, like you said, he was top 4 this past season. So if the Celtics are able to really, like if they're a 60-win team or something like that, I think it could end up being his award to lose.
I agree, man. And I'm gonna throw one more in here that I saw. I was just scrolling through.
Okay.
One more just to see how it makes you feel. Someone said Chase averages under 25 points per game this year.
Yeah, I'm passing that one like immediately. Him averaging under 25, like he's averaged I think he's now, this is his second season averaging over 25 points per game. I mean, he averaged over 31. Like, sure, potential breakout seasons from a number of guys are definitely going to take maybe some points away from him. I wouldn't be surprised if he averages less than 30 or around like maybe like 27, 28, but I think less than 25, I would be surprised. The only way I see that is if like Jada breaks out into an all-star or like Josh Giddey does, if Chet shoots a lot, which I don't see happening.
The only way his scoring goes down, I think, is if the touches just go way down.
Or like if we trade for a star at some point during the season, like something like that, I could see that happening, but he is very clearly the number 1 guy on the roster. I just don't see that occurring. So
yeah, he's not going to get lower than that just because he's being bad, I don't think.
Exactly. Yeah.
But
with all the Thunder biased ones, there are going to also be Thunder slander ones in there. I'm not
Yeah,
surprised.
they knew that I would, and it's funny because in their I can find their name real quick so they can get their shout out. But in their tweet, also they also said Houston's going to make the playoffs. So
yeah, that adds up.
hold on, I think this is from a Thunder fan.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, so maybe they're like a Thunder pass. What's the word?
They're a traitor.
Yeah,
Pessimist.
that was
Yeah,
what,
that's what you're going for.
I was gonna say pacifist, but
a Thunder pacifist. But yeah, I think that's all we got for y'all for today's episode. I appreciate you watching. Again, please leave a like and subscribe on the YouTube channel if you enjoyed. Go check it out on Spotify. It's supposed to be up on Apple. Apple Podcast is weird. I'm trying to figure out, like, every time I try and log into it, the page just keeps loading over and over again. So I'm trying to figure that out, but that should hopefully be over there soon as well. If you've got any ideas for other topics you want to see us talk about on the podcast during the off season, we're also going to be filming some like just random content over the next few days, hopefully, like maybe some tier lists or stuff like that. So if you want to see anything like that, any content recommendations, let us know in the comment section below. But yeah, for right now, we appreciate y'all watching as always. Ryan, you got anything you want to wrap up with real quick before I head out?
Not really. My only thing would be if you guys ever see like a segment that we do and you kind of want like a full video of it, let us know too, because we try to, keep it interesting by throwing in a bunch of different stuff. So if like you want us to do like, oh, can we get a full segment of you guys doing these like shooter pass on our takes, or can we get a full segment of like trivia? I know we've done in the past. We've done some other like, are you buying in on this person type of thing? Like we've done a lot of like little segments. So if you ever see a segment that you really like and you want like a full episode, or even just like you want to see it more and more, let us know, because that's the only way we'll know that you guys enjoy it. Like we enjoy it regardless, but obviously we want you guys to enjoy it too. So just make sure you let us know.
Yeah.
And we also really appreciate the engagement, because whenever Connor and I tweet this stuff out, we do get a pretty good turnout. And I know we can't get to everybody, but it does mean a lot to both of us. So you guys give us a lot of stuff to work with.
Yeah, we really appreciate all y'all's support on these first few episodes. Yeah, I think that's everything. We'll see y'all later. Again, Connor, Ryan, or Cone, whatever. Cone and Ryan from the 2-Man game. We appreciate y'all. We'll see y'all later. Take care.
Peace.